What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Fantasy Football Today, and happy Friday, November 21st. Week 12 begins with Houston beating Buffalo 23-19. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Happy Blue Shirt Day to Dave and Jamie. Good morning, fellas.
It's a blue jacket.
Well, it's true. What's up, James?
Kind of a pullover.
Good morning.
I don't think I've ever called you James before. Yes, please. We have a comment in the chat. Hit that like button. That'd be great. And if you're in the chat, we usually do this on the mailbag, actually. If you're in the chat and watching on demand, you can ask some start or sit questions, and I'll get to it. But that'll be for our mailbag show. All right, so we'll talk about Josh Allen getting sacked a whole bunch of times and the Texans with a big win. And we'll talk about these 6 games. Philadelphia at Dallas. Pumped for this one. Minnesota at Green Bay. Not really that pumped. Giants at Lions. Very interesting wager on this game. Can't wait to tell you about. Carolina at San Francisco. Tampa Bay at the Rams. Pumped. Oh, Bucky Irving update, by the way. Atlanta at New Orleans. Not pumped. Let's start with the Thursday night game. Houston 23, Buffalo 19. 8 sacks for the Texans. That's the most against Josh Allen in Allen's career. Also, a lot of injuries for Buffalo. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston, linebacker Terrell Bernard, right tackle Spencer Brown. The line in general was beat up, and they got their butts kicked. If you didn't watch it, I mean, it was just a masterclass by that defensive line for the Houston Texans. Dave, fantasy takeaways.
I thought that Houston's defense was awesome. I don't know if they would have been as awesome if Buffalo's offensive line were able to stay healthy for the entire game. And I think that's the difference between 8 sacks and 4 sacks. And that's definitely the difference between Josh Allen losing, like, it felt like a second and a half on every single drop back. It definitely made him jittery. Showed that Superman is mortal. I think if you started Josh Allen, you probably did the right thing with your fantasy team just as far as process goes. But man, just brutal results. Hopefully it doesn't cost you in your fantasy league. Khalil Shakir made up for last week. And what else? James Cook did his thing. Woody Marks disappointed. We were worried about that, but he was so close to scoring. Here's a takeaway. I think Jaden Higgins could end up being like one of the best mid to late round picks next year. And I wonder if he has some staying power for this year as at minimum a bench receiver, maybe when the matchup is right, like a low end number 3 receiver for fantasy, because he looked really good and he has looked pretty good leading up to this game. And that's against a good Buffalo defense.
7 or more targets in 3 straight games now for Jaden Higgins, and did come up with a touchdown, 4 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. Christian Kirk had a random good game here. And I think that, look, the Bills are the Bills. You're going to start Allen and Cook every week, and Khalil Shakir is sometimes he's great. Actually, no, he's usually not this great.
He's not this great, no.
But he's usually Khalil Shakir. But, Jamie, the question is, Woody Marks obviously had a good game. He didn't have a great fantasy game, but he played really well. Again, he kind of dominated the snaps. Unfortunately, came off the field at the goal line. And then Nico Collins with a massive dud. 3 catches for 55 yards on 3 targets. How much faith do you have in Marks and Collins going forward? The schedule at the Colts, at the Chiefs, Arizona, Las Vegas, at the Chargers.
We got to see if Nico Collins healthy, first off. Got banged up in the game. So I think they said maybe rib injury he could be dealing with. So just something to keep an eye on there. I think it's just kind of a week-to-week thing with Marks, depending on who you have on your roster. I think I have him in like 5 leagues, and in 2 of them, I have them with the Steelers running backs and somebody better. So I bench Marks because I'd rather start the Steelers running back. So that was a last-minute thing yesterday when Jalen Warren practiced. So I think I was the high guy when we went over our rankings yesterday on HQ. I think I had him 16. I think Dave was around 19, if I'm not mistaken. Heath was ranked 22. I think where those guys had him ranked is probably where he's going to be at the highest moving forward, especially once we start to get past the bye weeks. I don't know. I just think he's going to end up being one of these guys. Like the talent is there, and sometimes the opportunity is there from a matchup perspective, but may not deliver on a week-to-week basis just because of the offensive line concerns or just game flow in some cases. Like you would have said last week against Tennessee, he gets 18 carries. You're starting him going in without question.
Exactly.
So that's kind of I think the approach for him. In the case of just the Texans, like we have to see what it looks like with CJ Stroud back also. Like this has been 3 straight games of Davis Mills where Jaden Higgins has stepped up and Nico Collins has been good for 2 of those games. Not that there should be a difference because I think CJ Stroud's better. But this was also a game last night where we knew going in it was going to be tough for Dalton Schultz, and he's been such a big part of this also prior to, playing the Bills. So he gets the relief of not playing Buffalo. What's Buffalo's rest of season schedule just for opposing tight ends?
Buffalo, yeah. Okay, yeah. Which tight ends are you going to sit against Buffalo? Luckily, there really aren't that many good ones. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, New England, Cleveland, Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's the last two are probably the ones, depending on what the Browns look like over the next couple of weeks. And Dallas Goedert's always a fringe guy. So yeah, you're right. No must start guys. So don't drop Schultz after this week. I mean, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, boy, they're amazing against tight ends. It's actually 2 weeks in a row. Kate Otten was slightly open in the end.
Should have had a touchdown, and Schultz should have had a touchdown. Yep.
Yeah, both of them. But even if they had caught those touchdowns, it wouldn't have been that good of a game. That's how good they've been against.
Would have been better than 1.8 fantasy points. And also, if we had told you going into the game, hey, Dalton Schultz is going to get more targets than Nico Collins, you would have been racing to start Dalton Schultz. Unfortunately, they combined for fewer targets than Jaden Higgins had by himself.
Nico Collins was not targeted in the second half. He had 3 catches for 55 yards in the first half. He ran only 9 routes in the second half where they were very run heavy. He got banged up, as Jamie mentioned, at the very end of the first half. He came back in, I think, for the last snap of the half. But it's super frustrating. I had a bad feeling about it. I just felt like Jacksonville and Tampa. It did a big breakdown of this on Beyond the Box Score. I just felt like the biggest reasons for his success were the fact that he played Jacksonville and Tennessee the previous 2 weeks, and Davis Mills threw over 40 times. So whatever. I'm never going to sit him, but he's basically ruined my fantasy seasons. It's my worst call. Dave and I were talking about that before the show. Nico Collins is my worst call.
My worst. I would say that my worst call was in this game, but he was watching from the sideline because he was a healthy scratch.
Keon Coleman. And Jamie, we couldn't remember your worst call if you'd like to go down memory lane.
My worst call? There's so many.
No.
Trying to think. I'll remember it.
Okay.
I had a suggestion for one.
Breece Hall's been good. I was very down on him.
What about Krosky Merritt?
Liking him?
You were so bullish on him.
I was?
You were.
I don't remember that, really.
I remember him being very bullish on Krosky. You were taking him way higher than ADP. I remember you talking about that.
Maybe.
I don't know, man.
I think being that high on him.
I think you're thinking of Jacob. Jamie, Jacob. They have the same.
Oh, that's a good one. The Wicks 14. Yeah, I was a Braylon Allen guy.
Yeah.
But he got hurt. I don't know if you should get blamed.
No, Pacheco. I knew people were going to say Pacheco was a worse call than Nico, but no, he was.
I told you that people would say that.
Nico was my wide receiver too. He's been horrible. I'm never going to do that again with a guy that I think might be on a bad offense.
Oh, there's a good one. Yeah, RJ Harvey too. I was very high on RJ Harvey.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. We all suck. Anyway, since we're so bad at this, join us Sunday morning, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. And we'll answer your start-sit questions, hopefully correctly. youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Okay, news and notes. I've got the trash-talking GIF of the day. Okay, because if you're in a league with a lot of trash talk and you've got a good team and you've got Joe Burrow on your bench, it's time to get Billy Madison holding the dodgeball going. Now you're all in big trouble because here comes
You can actually get the GIF correctly?
What's that?
You can actually get it with just the thing?
What do you mean? Oh, no, I couldn't. I got it. Yeah, pretty bad screenshot here on YouTube. But he might play. He might start. He took first team reps yesterday. He wanted to come back Thanksgiving. He might just come back 4 days earlier.
I think if he plays this week, that might be your worst call.
What?
He's not going to play.
Who, me?
I know you were following the comments that he made, but you're pretty adamant. Like, I don't think he's going to come back.
Oh, excuse me. I did not say that. I said that he said that the record.
I'm saying you. I'm not saying you were putting that out there yourself. You were very pessimistic. Let's just say.
I was actually just quoting him. But okay. Anyway, Joe Burrow might play this week, so that would be pretty cool. Where would you rank him if he plays?
Borderline top 12. I'd be a little hesitant to just rush him right back into lineups in his first game back without Jamar Chase against the Patriots.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So have Dak Prescott against the Eagles or Joe Burrow if he plays?
He'd be behind Brissett and Purdy for me. So still Still looking at those two guys as better plays for this week than Burrow.
All right.
Where do you have Brissett and Purdy in your rankings?
8 and 9.
Okay.
Jackson Dart is still in the concussion protocol, but making progress. So fingers crossed. Dart or Burrow, if they play.
Right now I have Flacco and Dart back to back with Dart slightly ahead. So that might just flip flop. But that range, 12, 13-ish.
Yep. Okay. Shedeur Sanders starting. Lamar Jackson practiced in full. That was cool. Daniel Jones limited with a calf injury. Seems like that's just out of caution. Aaron Rodgers limited yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. And running back news. So the big one here, Josh Jacobs and Jaylen Warren are still trying to get back this week. Warren was limited. Jacobs said he's either playing this week or he's playing Thanksgiving. So it's not a long-term issue. If you have Emmanuel Wilson, at most you're going to get 1 week as a starter, according to Jacobs.
And did you see what he said about MetLife?
Yeah, I did see that. He said it's the worst turf in the NFL. Sean Tucker could get a bigger workload, and reportedly Bucky Irving is out and may not be back anytime soon. I'm sure you guys saw what Tiki Barber said. What did we make of this, Dave? If you have Bucky Irving, or did you not see what he said?
I wasn't sure if it was Tiki or somebody else, so that's why I made
it was
face.
Tiki on his pod. Maybe Rondé. Maybe it was Rondé. I'm sorry.
Right.
You
know, those twins. I think you just keep doing what you've been doing with Bucky Irving. You keep him on your bench and wait for some positive news. I feel like it's been positive the last couple of weeks because he's been practicing, he's been out there, but you just have to wait and see. And I would imagine that in his first game back, he's not going to be given, his typical workload that we saw from earlier in the year. So you're going to have to wait an extra week after that, unless you are starved for running back help.
Do you have the comments? So to
Yes.
put in context.
Okay, so
Yeah,
WFLA.com has the quotes from Rondé Barber, and he said, Bucky is not going to be back on Sunday Night Football. They'll start both of White and Tucker. And then he went on to say, Bucky is getting better, but I don't know we're going to see Bucky anytime soon. This is Rondé Barber saying this. I'm not at liberty to say why. Bucky's got to get right with Bucky. Is it the shoulder? Yes. Is it the ankle? Probably better from that now, but there's a lot of things that have to go right for Bucky in the short term, and I don't know if we're going to see him.
I believe there was also the Pro Football Talk report about him dealing with some mental health issues as well. And then there was, I think, Rick Stroud, who covers the team for Tampa Bay Times, if I'm not mistaken, the publication. He said that Bucky, here, I have it here. Rick Stroud, he tweeted this. He quote tweeted the Pro Football Talk report, and this was yesterday. Bucky Irving needed some mental health support from what I can gather following his injury, and I'm told he's, quote, trending toward playing in the very near future. It won't be Sunday, however. Not sure I agree with Florio's claim he doesn't expect Irving Jr. anytime soon. Okay.
All right. So we'll see, but it's going to be Sean Tucker and Rachaad White this week, and we'll talk about that shortly. Travis Etienne and Bajal Tutin are both limited right now. Isaiah Pacheco went from full on Wednesday to limited on Thursday. So if Pacheco were out, Kareem Hunt would be what? Would he be top 24 guy?
Borderline.
He'd cross that border for me, but not too much more than that.
He was 24th before Pacheco returned, and I think I dropped him to around 30th.
And Ramondre Stevenson still limited. Wide receiver stuff, Brian Thomas Jr. still limited. Darius Slayton got in a limited session. We're expecting Drake London next week. He's not going to play this week. Chimere DK practiced in full, and Alec Iomatter missed practice. Xavier Legette practiced, kind of not mentioned at all, was that Legette had a huge game last week. Luther Burden has apparently earned more playing time. That's good. And Chris Godwin.
That's been happening.
Yeah, Chris Godwin trending in the right direction. He might play this week, but we're going to talk about that game. Tight end, David Njoku day-to-day. Isaiah Likely was out Wednesday, but limited Thursday, so that's a good sign. Brenton Strange was limited, and we'll leave it there. Philadelphia, their center, we know they're going to be without their right tackle, but their center actually is in the concussion protocol, but got in a limited session, so he's trending in the right direction. Bears are beat up on defense. Giants are beat up on defense. Minnesota might be getting healthier with Jonathan Grenard, one of their best players. He was limited at practice. Packers are a little banged up with Quay Walker out, missing practice, and cornerback Nate Hobbs. They're facing Minnesota, and I'll leave it there. All right. Let's take a break and get into one question for each game when we come back.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
That is a rookie mistake.
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Okay, we're back here with one question for each game. And we'll start with Dave, because Jamie has left the room for a moment. Philadelphia at Dallas. There's Jamie. Which offense are you more confident in, Eagles or Cowboys?
Probably the Cowboys, but I think both offenses have very challenging matchups to deal with.
Isn't that a great question? I don't usually toot my own horn for one question for each game, but what a great question that is.
I mean, you got to make up for yesterday with all your crappy stats that Heath was just, body blow left and right. You came up with one, and he would just haymaker and knock you out.
Yeah, I think this should be a running thing of who could have better stat of the game. I like it. Minnesota at Green Bay. Jamie, is Emmanuel Wilson a must start if Josh Jacobs is out?
I don't want to use the term must start, but he's a starter.
Do you feel the same way about him that you might have felt about Woody Marks going into last night?
I think I have them ranked back to back. Yeah, so it's a guy that has a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Marks, it was a great matchup. So Wilson feels like one of these guys that could be a fooled you. Great scenario. The offense has been bad. So it's not like there's a ton of, they're walking into this great situation because Jordan Love's playing great and he's going to have all these touchdown opportunities. Like, Josh Jacobs is a great player and he makes a lot of things easier for that team. I don't know if Emmanuel Wilson's that same guy. So I think if he's going with the idea of, can he get you 8 or 9 without a touchdown? I think that's fair. If he scores, then he probably has a very good day.
Okay. I think putting him in the Woody Marks, framework is helpful. Giants are at Detroit. So obviously we know Gibbs and St. Brown for sure, but rank Wan'Dale Robinson, Jamison Williams, David Montgomery. Let's say in a full PPR league. Wan'Dale, Jamo, Montgomery. How would you rank them, Dave?
Jamo, big gap. Wan'Dale, little gap. Montgomery.
Jamie?
Same.
Okay, you want a good stat here? What are we expecting?
He's on the show.
Ew.
What are we expecting from Montgomery? About 10, 11 carries. The Giants have allowed double-digit fantasy points in PPR to 5 running backs who have had 11 or fewer carries and 1 or fewer catches. That is the exact profile of David Montgomery. So it's obviously an opportunity for Montgomery, who's been very disappointing lately. Carolina to San Francisco. Jamie, any interest in a San Francisco wide receiver?
In 3 receiver leagues, certainly not in 2 receiver leagues. There's not a lot of, I think, any evidence that one guy is going to be great or both guys are going to be successful. It's a good secondary. They've certainly done a great job in limiting fantasy points to the position. And so after what you saw last week with Brock Purdy scoring 3 touchdowns and not having his receivers really do much, like, you got to see it from Ricky Pearsall first to consider him a must-start guy. And Jennings with Pearsall coming back, I think caps his upside a little bit. So 3 receiver leagues, I'm certainly interested in both. Jennings over Pearsall still, but in 2 receiver leagues, no chance yet.
All right, Carolina, San Francisco. Then it brings us to who is tonight? Tampa Bay, Los Angeles. There we go. Tampa Bay and the Rams. Dave, the Rams running backs. Now that we are pretty sure Bucky Irving's not going to play, how are we approaching the Rams running backs?
Kyron Williams is a must start.
Bucks running backs.
The Bucks running backs. I moved up Sean Tucker a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's a tough matchup. I know that this defense has been really good and they don't allow a lot of touchdowns, but hopefully the Bucks stick with what they've been saying lately in the media and that Sean Tucker is their guy. I don't know how I don't know how they could go back to Rachaad White on running downs at this point. So hopefully Tucker gets off to a pretty good start, gets a lot of carries. And, kind of in that same range that we were talking about for Woody Marks and Emmanuel Wilson, but he's got a little more upside and that's a big if, he gets the same type of opportunity that he got last week.
Yeah, so I assume you don't have Josh Jacobs ranked at this point. So Emmanuel Wilson or Sean Tucker?
Right now, I've got Wilson over Tucker.
Jamie?
Yeah, Wilson significantly over Tucker. I don't like Tucker this week.
No?
No, it's just tough matchup. Like, he was great against
One of the easiest matchups.
terrible defense. Yeah.
He also averages about over 5 yards per carry, I think, against the Patriots. So, and they have the best run defense in football, arguably. This is Sean Tucker we're talking about. And if it helps, if anybody wants to be optimistic about Sean Tucker, 5 of 10 running backs have averaged 4.5 yards per carry or better, lead running backs against the Rams. Some of them have been awful, though, like Barkley, 2.6, McCaffrey, 2.5 yards, Kamara, 2.3 yards per carry. But some of them have been pretty good, but they keep you out of the end zone typically. All right, last game is Atlanta at New Orleans. I'm going to give this to Dave because Jamie already talked about Kamara yesterday as a number 2 running back, close to a flex, but the most optimism he's had about Kamara in a while. And Atlanta gives up the 4th most points to running back. So, Dave, are you starting Alvin Kamara?
Definitely. He's a number 2 fantasy running back, almost in that same vein as we're talking about. You know, we are building this group of number 2 running backs, including a guy that played on Thursday night. And Kamara is squarely in that group. I wish that we could be convinced that he's going to have more targets and more catches. But I love that he had 22 carries against Carolina in their last game. Hopefully he can be more efficient. Atlanta's run defense isn't that good. And I think Atlanta's offense isn't going to be very good. They'll run the ball, of course, but I think once they get to 3rd and long, they'll be punting very, very soon after. And that could lead to longer possessions, more possessions for New Orleans. And that should give a lot of opportunity to Kamara.
Okay, so by the way, the Falcons could be getting linebacker Divine Diablo back. I don't know how much that's going to help. They're pretty bad against the run with him on the field anyway. But if we look at this number 2 running back group that we've talked about sort of organically the last couple shows, we got Emmanuel Wilson, Alvin Kamara, Sean Tucker. Does I throw David Montgomery in there?
Absolutely.
You could.
David Montgomery.
I think I said this to you either yesterday or Wednesday. Like, I think Quinshon Judkins and Breece Hall are in this group too.
Okay, perfect.
And Genty.
Okay, Genty, Judkins, Breece Hall. So I've got 7 guys here. Emmanuel Wilson, Alvin Kamara, Sean Tucker, David Montgomery, Ashton Genty, Quinshon Judkins, and Breece Hall. Did I say any names that either of you are excited to start? Oh, let me throw Ken Walker in there as well.
Yep.
Any names of those 8 that you're excited to start? Emmanuel Wilson, Kamara, Tucker, Walker, Montgomery, Genty, Judkins, Breece Hall.
I don't want to confuse having a player that's top 15 as somebody that I'm like jazzed to start.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Tyrod Taylor taking over at quarterback opens the door for more targets and catches for Breece Hall. And I think he's got a good offensive line that can open up space for him. So I'm kind of encouraged by Breece Hall and what he might be able to do. And the Ravens run defense, while it's improving, they're still like absolutely weakest on the defensive line. And so I think the Jets can lean on that. And I just think it helps that they've got a quarterback that will run, but I don't think he'll run to the same level that Justin Fields did. And that'll help Breece.
There's pros and cons for all these guys. I mean, you know, in the case of Hall and Judkins and Genty, you assume their workload is going to be consistent. So you should feel confident in that. In the case of Walker, you should feel confident in what Mike McDonald said, plus the team that they're facing for the most part has struggled against the run, whether you want to nitpick who's been in, who's been out for the Titans. In the case of Kamara, as Dave said, coming off a strong game, Falcons matchup is fantastic. Montgomery, you gave out great stat, you know, first time ever about what the Giants defense looks like, you know, so great situation there for him, you know, so all these guys have certainly their reasons for optimism and to be positive about, but there's a reason why they've been either struggling or coming off bad games or stretch of games. And in the case of some of these guys, like, you know, Genty, for example, taking on a very tough matchup. So I don't know how you could say, you know, excited to start them, but there's paths to success for all of these guys. You know, Aaron Jones probably belongs in this group too. You know, another guy.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to talking about that game. Okay, BetMGM, baby. Second chance. They're giving you one. So picture this. You bet on your favorite player to score the first touchdown in the game, but his teammate scores instead. Well, if this happens, BetMGM wants to give you another chance at the end zone. With BetMGM's second chance promotion, you're going to get your stake back if your first touchdown scorer scores second instead. So you bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. And if you're right, you win. And if your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. With BetMGM's second chance offer, you have a chance to keep the fun going after the first player crosses the goal line. Try a first touchdown scorer wager with confidence today. BetMGM, make it legendary. All right, here we go. Eagles at Cowboys. What if it's the Eagles defense done against great offenses? Well, week 1, Cowboys scored 20 points, Chiefs 17 points, Rams 26, Bucks 25, Denver, if you consider them, 21. The Giants scored 27 and 20. They're an okay offense. Packers scored 10. The Lions scored 9. Since Jalen Phillips came aboard, holy cow, they've held the Packers and the Lions to 19 points combined. So is this going to be a good or bad game for fantasy, Dave?
I'm nervous that it'll be bad, and I don't have it ranked that way, and I struggle with that personally. But I don't see how fantasy managers are going to find it in their mind somehow to bench CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, and I don't think you should, especially in PPR leagues. They're going to get their opportunities, but I could see touchdowns coming at a premium because both defenses, but especially Phillies, have improved over the past couple of weeks. And just think about this: how many points did Dallas have in week 1?
20.
Okay, and that was without Jalen Carter because that was
Correct.
Spitgate number 1, and he didn't play in the game. So now, not only is Jalen Carter playing, unless he does something stupid, but you mentioned Jalen Phillips. You didn't mention the secondary for Philly, which played very well last week.
For Dallas. Oh, no, for Philly.
For Philly. Yeah. We're talking about Dallas's offense, right?
Yeah, I just thought you were going to talk about the Dallas secondary.
Which Barber twin was it that talked about Bucky Irving? I'm still confused.
No, you're right.
I think Philadelphia's defense is really, really good. The one thing that I do kind of feel a little encouraged by is that Dallas's offensive line has been playing well of late. They've been healthier, and maybe that gives them a little bit of an edge overall.
So just for those of you who don't remember, week 1, Friday night, Dallas and Philadelphia and Brazil. One of the reasons why Dak had such a bad game.
That game was not in Brazil.
Where was it?
It was in Philadelphia.
The Chargers Chiefs game was in Brazil.
My bad. One of the reasons that was a Thursday night game, right? That was Thursday.
Correct.
Okay.
Now you're on.
I think both Rondé and Tiki were there.
This is pathetic. This is absolutely pathetic. But this I am right about. CeeDee Lamb had 4 drops in that game. Really hurt Dak Prescott. Actually, we came out of that game going, Dak played really well.
Dak played great in that
game. He did.
And Pickens was not Pickens at that point. So things are different for both teams.
I don't know if you run away from Dallas in this game just because their offense is as good as any offense in the league.
No.
Okay, so here's the question. Who are you confident in? Confidently starting, they're going to have a good game. You feel it.
So I think just in the context of what this week looks like, and if you just need a reminder, take a look at all of our rankings. Like, there's no way you're going to have much better options than CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. So in the case of the Eagles receivers, are you talking about Cowboys and the whole game?
Anyone in this
in the case of the Eagles receivers, it's hard to have confidence in those two guys because they haven't been playing very well consistently. So I mean, I'm starting Michael Wilson over both Eagles receivers without hesitation. Jameson Williams over both those guys. Trying to think of anybody else.
Teteroa McMillan
over both those guys. Guys who are playing well and have better matchups for the most part. So it's easy to get away from. Not as easy. It's easier to get away from them. Like the Cowboys receivers are just on a different level right now, and their quarterback is on a different level right now. And if the game plays as you probably expect it to, like the Cowboys are going to throw the ball 40 times.
I don't know. The Cowboys.
I don't think the Eagles are scoring very much, but that's just the way the Cowboys play.
But they didn't play that way last week, did they?
They played the Raiders.
Okay, yeah,
right.
but so here,
like this isn't a game where Javonte goes crazy.
No, but the Cowboys, their 3 lowest pass rate games. What's their record? 4-5-1, I think.
That sounds right.
Their 3 lowest pass rate games are wins, but all of them were by 15 or more points. So there is that. They're not going to win this game like that. But I think. Would you agree with this? We could sit here and make a case that Lamb and Pickens are dangerous, but there is just no way you can sit them.
Correct.
You could have done that with Josh Allen.
Exactly.
Jamie kind of did, actually, because Jamie and I think Heath too had him 6th. But
Just do that with Nico Collins. I mean, they're
sure.
this is just one of these weeks, unfortunately, where you're gonna have to get by with some superstars struggling and get lucky that a few players pop.
Right.
The fact that you haven't played the game of the week music for this game
Mhm.
also says a lot, because you're not expecting it to be a high scoring game where there's a fantasy bonanza.
Like I just did the 2 DFS lineups that I put in the column on Sportsline, and it's tough. It's tough to find, like, these are easy calls without a lot of duplication.
The total here is 47.5. That's pretty high. And that's a little surprising to me. Okay, so start Lamb, start Pickens.
That is interesting.
What about the running backs? What about Javonte and Barkley, who both have had their struggles?
I mean, I feel the same exact way as I do the Cowboys receivers. The matchup does look tough, but I'm not going to sit them for any of the running backs that we talked about in that RB2 range. Not one. They're both starting over Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Ashton Jenney, whoever we named, Sean Tucker. Like, I'm not going to get crazy. I know what their upside is. They both have 2 touchdown upside, but if it's going to be a low scoring game, maybe that means a lot of carries. Maybe it means some more catches for Javonte, and he can do something with them for a change, but I can't count on that. They're both top 12 running backs for me in PPR.
Okay, let's do the Michael Wilson test. PPR.
Yeah, that's a great test. I love this.
Michael Wilson. Okay, here's the Michael Wilson test. Dave, where's Michael Wilson born?
I want to say, I'll guess California.
I have no idea. Michael Wilson or Saquon Barkley or Javonte Williams, PPR.
I have Wilson higher than both.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, he better not turn into Parker Washington.
That if they do, then that means Zonovan Knight turned into Saquon Barkley.
All right. Yeah. Again, these are guys that you're likely going to
If he
start.
turns into Parker Washington, did Tom Brady do that since he cloned his dog? Like, how did that work?
Just, you know what I'm saying.
Wow.
Tom Brady
Michael Wilson was born in New Zealand.
Oh, Dave passed. Failed.
But he grew up in Simi Valley, California. So maybe partial credit.
All right. Would you start Wan'Dale Robinson, who's, whatever, or AJ Brown, Devontae Smith?
Wanda.
No.
I'm definitely starting Devontae Smith over Wan'Dale Robinson. I think it's closer between AJ Brown and Wan'Dale.
Sorry, I get upset anytime people say Wan'Dale. I'm so
Why?
Because you want to know why?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you why. Because since the Malik Neighbors injury, Wan'Dale Robinson is 5th in targets at wide receiver, and he is 32nd per game. That's
right,
why.
that same stretch for AJ Brown.
No. Is this a Smith or a Brown game, Dave?
I think it's a Smith game for multiple reasons. But number one, usually, at least it's been this way this year, zone coverage has favored Devontae Smith. They throw to him more. He's got a higher target per route run rate. He's more explosive just overall than AJ Brown. And that's what the Cowboys play the most in, is zone coverage. That's been a Matt Eberflus thing forever. And I think Philly's going to need to try and hit some deep shots. And I think Smith's key to that.
Okay. We don't know really how good the Cowboys defense is. It was the worst defense in football, basically. They traded for 2 guys. They played the Raiders. They did a great job. Let's see what they do against the Eagles. Maybe because they give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers.
Throw it all out, though. You have to throw it all out.
I don't think you have to throw it all out.
I think you do. They've got 5 new starters.
But I don't know
that
these guys are actually good. I don't know if these guys are actually good.
The only thing I would say in terms of throw it all out is they're not facing a great passing offense.
No.
And that's the problem. It's like, I think if they were still as bad as they could be, and to be fair, Trey Tucker had a solid game for a guy that hadn't done anything for well over a month.
Yeah.
And Brock Bowers still had a good game. We know he's not a traditional tight end. So the 2 best pass catchers for the Raiders still produced enough that you would say, okay, I'm buying into what this defense still allows to opposing passing games. But to Dave's point, like, their pass rush is going to be better because the interior of the line is going to get a lot of pressure up, on Eagles. They're down Lane Johnson, which has always been the kryptonite for Jalen Hurts. And then you're talking about a team that is very content on a low-scoring, grind-out type of game that they're just about wins at this point. And so I think like A.J. Brown talked about, facing his own defense yesterday. I don't know if you saw his comments, and he just said, something we're continuing to work on. Jalen Hurts does not challenge consistently in the middle of the field. And so, yes, this probably is a better game for Devontae Smith. And the last time these two teams met, Dallas Goedert had 7 catches. So he's in play as well as a starting tight end. But I don't think you can go into this based on what we've seen from the Eagles that this is going to be the week that they win me my league.
Okay, so let's talk about the quarterback. Real quick on the wide receivers. Would you start Zonovan Knight over A.J. Brown and
No.
Devontae Smith? Would you start Emmanuel Wilson over them?
Yes.
Might start Wilson over Brown.
Obviously, if Jacobs is out. Now, Hurts, Dak, Ferguson, Goddard. Let's do the quarterbacks first. Which quarterback do you like better?
Hurts slightly.
Dak for Dave, Hurts for Jamie. Starting Goff over them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Burrow if he starts. I think I asked you about that earlier, but
I don't know if I'm going that far.
Okay. How about Baker Mayfield?
I started the week loving Baker. I've moved him down since. As of now, I've got Dak and Hurts ahead of Baker. I might split the difference.
Baker's behind them.
Stafford.
Well ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Well ahead.
Tight ends.
Yes, they play. Ferguson over Goddard. Ferguson and Goddard are outside the top 5, but inside the top 10.
These are tough calls too. I mean, the Eagles are so good against tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyle Pitts or Ferguson, Goddard?
Ferguson and Goddard.
Theo Johnson?
Just behind him.
Johnson's behind those guys. Harold Fannin Jr. or tight end in this game?
The only way Fannin will move ahead of those guys is if Njoku's out.
Okay.
I'm still very nervous about any Browns pass catcher. So give me Ferguson and Goddard.
I don't want to. It's one of those games where it's Ferguson. What am I going to do? Go to the waiver wire? I mean, I'd start Juwan Johnson over Ferguson. Would you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right move.
Okay, but the Eagles, they're second best against tight ends. Only Buffalo is better. All right. And are you starting a DST in this game?
I like Philly. I think
Eagles
they'll get some sacks, and I'm not ready to start the Cowboys, which is backwards, right? Because I like Dak better than Jalen Hurts.
One quick stat on Dallas Goedert. He had made his hay with all these catches and touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. He has 4 of them this year. He had a combined 4 in his previous 4 seasons. Jalen Hurts has not thrown a pass inside the 5-yard line in 4 straight games. So it makes it tough on Goddard. All right, that's it for that big game. That was very confusing and required a lot of time. We'll take one last break, and we got 5 games left when we come back, beginning with Minnesota at Green Bay. We'll be right back.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
I think this week is just reluctant start week. Happy reluctant start week, everybody. Okay, Minnesota at Green Bay. The combination of the game. The Packers allow the fewest passing yards per attempt in the NFL, and J.J. McCarthy is 3rd worst in yards per attempt. So this should go great. And stat of the game, only one wide receiver has scored more than 10.6 PPR fantasy points against the Vikings with 5 or fewer targets. Why do I bring that up? Because Christian Watson's had 5 or fewer targets in all 4 of his games. Jamie, anyone you're excited about starting in Minnesota and Green Bay?
It's crazy to say no, but the answer is no. I mean, you look at the Vikings and Justin Jefferson has not played well recently. He did have a touchdown and 16 some odd PPR points 3 games ago with J.J. McCarthy, but the last 2 games have been frustrating. He's still getting targets, and he obviously has a great history against the Packers because he's Justin Jefferson. But I think just in the case of some of the receivers that we talked about, Tedero McMillan, Jamison Williams, Michael Wilson, I would start all 3 of those over Jefferson too. Like, they're just in better spots right now. So just a number 2 fantasy receiver, which is, frustrating to say. And he's really the only Vikings player that I think is close to being a must start. I do think Aaron Jones has an opportunity to play well. He was great against Green Bay in Green Bay last year, and he's gotten solid production in the 3 games since he's come back from injury. For the Packers, Jacobs would be a must-start guy if he plays, just because he's Josh Jacobs. But outside of that, you can't trust the receivers. They're at best number 3 options in Dobbs and Watson. Jordan Love is tough to trust in this matchup. And Emmanuel Wilson as a good replacement option. I think he's number 2 running back, but nothing that's a must-start player here. So it's really just a lot of, reluctant starts and guys you might want to run away from.
Who's the best start in this game? Sounds like you're saying Jefferson.
Yeah, it would still be Jefferson. Just based, look, there's still the potential there, and he's getting targets. It's not like the targets have not been there for him. So he's still getting opportunities. It's just he's not connecting with McCarthy, mostly because of McCarthy. So they're going to roll coverage to him. Jordan Addison has been terrible with the 3 games with McCarthy. TJ Hawkinson has been bad in 5 games with McCarthy. Like, it's just been both those guys struggling, and it's clearly because of McCarthy. So based on how this offense is operating right now, there's just not a lot of trust, I think, that you can have in these guys. Like, they're terrible DFS plays. I just hope that this is a week, where you get Jefferson in the end zone and then he saves your production.
Dave, how do you feel about the running backs, Jones and Wilson?
I like them both as number 2s. I think they'll both see the majority of work for their teams. This is assuming that Josh Jacobs sits out. We'll wait and see on that one. But Green Bay likes to run. There isn't any doubt about that. I don't think they're going to change that MO just because Josh Jacobs is out. I think they've got confidence in Wilson. He's looked okay. And I know he can catch the ball a little bit, and I know he's physical. So there's certainly a chance for him to get 2 or 3 catches, score a touchdown from the goal line. That these are things that the Vikings have allowed. So they've been good at not giving up huge efficiency to running backs outside of, a bad game here or there. And there's always a chance that this could be another bad game for Minnesota, just as far as that goes. With Aaron Jones, he's been playing around 70% of the snaps, certainly as a target in the passing game. Was just off on a touchdown on a wheel route last week from JJ McCarthy. And that's kind of the story with JJ McCarthy is he's either just like so close to getting some big completions or just so way off. And it probably depends on how far he's throwing down the field. I don't mind using Aaron Jones this week because I do think there's a little bit of a chance of him between rushing and receiving, having a top 15 to 20-ish type day.
And to be fair, they could not stop the Giants' run game last week at all, Green Bay. It was disastrous how Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary produced against them.
Yeah, unfortunately. And the week before that, they did great against Barkley, but the week before that, they got destroyed by Rico Dowdle. So it's been kind of up and down for the Green Bay run defense. Overall, though, they allow 3.8 yards per carry to running backs. That's really, really good.
I mean, you would assume this is what Kevin O'Connell's game plan is, try to run the ball against them to take pressure off McCarthy, but you also assume that the Packers are going to try and stop the run and force JJ McCarthy to make plays.
Absolutely. Okay, so Jefferson is a start, but, Jamie already said he'd start Michael Wilson over him. Aaron Jones seems like a little bit ahead of most of those running backs we talked about earlier in that RB2 group. Emmanuel Wilson is in that group, and Josh Jacobs would be a must-start if he plays. You're sitting McCarthy. Jordan Love, I think, is 16th for you guys, so try to get away from Jordan Love. You think Jordan Love will be better or worse than Davis Mills, who scored 18.5 points last night?
Great number right there.
I think he'll be just below. He tends to struggle when he's pressured. The one thing the Vikings consistently do is pressure the quarterback.
So let's talk about the wide receiver.
Dave, as a former Bears fan there, the microphone just died when he had to say something about the Packers.
I don't know why that happens. Yeah, it was weird.
That was weird.
Let's talk about the who's your favorite Packers wide receiver, Dave?
Christian Watson.
Why Watson over Dobbs? Dobbs gets consistently.
Oh, you know what? In PPR, I've got Dobbs 1 spot higher. In non-PPR, I think I've got Watson 1 spot higher. But they're both right on the low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 range.
You're I don't know, 5-6 spots higher on Dobbs and Watson than Jamie is. So maybe this is worth having a little rankings dispute, Jamie. You've got them closer to 30th, and Dave has them closer to 24th, the 2 top Packers receivers.
There's just been such a lack of consistency for both of these guys. Dobbs is getting targets and not producing. Watson had 1 spike game with 2 touchdowns despite only getting 5 targets. Until I see more targets for him, it's hard to say he should be a starter. And in the case of Dobbs, he's just kind of been like a poor man's Khalil Shakir, like getting opportunities and just not producing consistently with it. This is a really good defense.
Yeah, Dobbs. So Dobbs, I think people would probably be more confident in Dobbs. He had 4 catches for 53 yards on 8 targets if he didn't have 2 drops, 2 pretty easy drops against the Giants. And those are 2 of his, I want to say 3 or 4 drops all season. He's usually pretty sure-handed. But then he'd be coming off a 6 catch, 70-yard game, and you take that. He also has 8.
He's the only one that I think you can say I'm going to start with some semblance of I know what I'm getting.
Right. Expectation.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's Khalil Shakir.
Yeah. All right.
There's a lot of Khalil Shakirs this week.
Don't start the tight ends. Green Bay's DST is top 7 for Dave and Jamie. Giants are at the Lions. I already gave the stat of the game about the Giants giving up good games to running backs who get about 11 or 12 touches, which is Montgomery. Montgomery has scored once in his last 5 games. Just the problem is, even when he scores, he's scoring 13 fantasy points or something like that. But I feel like he's scoring this game.
Yes.
Yeah, right? So this look, the Lions are going to have a big game. The Lions are going to have fun.
Probably.
Would you like to hear the wager of the game?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for saying yes. You probably don't.
This is the wager of the game. Yeah.
This is the wager of the season. Yeah.
Adam and Chad Smith.
Adam and Chad Smith, drummer of the Chili Peppers, interviewed him before the season started. He's a big Lions fan. We said, let's make a bet on this game. He gave me 13 points.
Wow.
So I've got Giants plus 13. I think the spread is 10.5. If the Giants cover, I get signed drumsticks. I'm pumped about that. Let's go. If the Lions win by more than 13, I have to wear a Lions t-shirt on the air, which is fine. I'll do that. I don't care. Let's get those drumsticks, baby. 13 drumsticks. 12. We need 12 or less.
I think you're in trouble.
You think so? The Giants, they usually lose 1-score games. They're pretty competitive.
This is Detroit going back home, coming off a loss. Like this could be ugly.
Yeah, so it's all systems go for the Lions. Goff is start of the week. I think he's 4th in the quarterback. 3rd now? Okay. So you have who ahead?
Drake May and Stafford.
Okay. Dave, I think you have him 4th. So
I have May and Stafford ahead of him too. I also had Josh Allen ahead of him. Anyway.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Jamison Williams is a layup, an easy start this week?
Based on the week, yes. Based on what he's done, yes. Like there's so much upside for him right now. No Sam Laporta, great matchup. Dan Campbell's unlocked him. It's been fun. So this should be a big game for him.
So he's been getting the type of targets that we've been talking about for some other receivers on this show, but he's turning them into monster numbers. And I don't see how anybody can get away from that, especially with the Lions with a get right game like this. And they've had a couple of these already this year, and they've just had massive outbursts. I can't imagine this is going to be a bad game for almost literally anyone on the Lions.
So I just want to point out with Williams, we've been singing his praises all week, deservedly so. He's top 15 in the rankings. I'm certainly starting him. His explosive play rate is out of control. 33.3%, 43%, 43% in 3 games. No one does that. So he's kind of like a running back who is averaging 6.5 yards per carry right now, basically. So he's playing really well, but it can't be this good. But again, like Giants probably won't have Paulson Adebo or Kayvon Thibodeau, and it's start him. I just want to point out.
Bill Carter going to be awake?
No, I really don't think he slept.
I know he disputed it.
Yeah. I think that was seemed like some bad reporting there. Okay, the Giants are tough though. The Giants are tough. I don't think you're going to start Jameis, but if Dart plays, Dart is one of the only quarterbacks who's done well against the Eagles, and he did it twice. He's been good against the Chargers. Amazing game against the Broncos on the road. So starter sit Jackson Dart if he plays.
Low end starter. I think, you kind of go with the expectation of they're down big and he's, doing his thing. Hopefully he's not getting in situations that he gets himself hurt after, a concussion and multiple visits to be evaluated for concussions this season. But this is the Blake Bortles game. This is where he's, down big and hopefully just chucking all over the place. So I think there's opportunities for Wan'Dale Robinson, which is why I like him. There's opportunities for whoever the other guy's going to be, whether it's Darius Slayton or Isaiah Hodgins. There's opportunities for Theo Johnson. The Lions have really given up a lot of production to tight ends lately in the last 5 games. So
yeah,
there's reason for optimism for these guys, really outside of the run game, because while Tracy was great last week and Singletary scored 2 touchdowns, the Lions just are the Buffalo Bills versus tight ends. Like, they just erase run games. So I don't know if you want to start Tracy with any hope of building off of what he did a week ago. There's just so many other, like all those guys that we've listed, including Sean Tucker. I think you make a case for it. Like, for me, I would even gamble on Ramondre Stevenson over Tyrone Tracy this week, just based on matchup.
Wow. Okay. And was Bam Knight?
I would start Knight over both Giants running backs. Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking for some chat.
Well, I mean, again, is he healthy and what's going on with Trey Benson?
Obviously. Yeah. And we'll get to that game very shortly here. So that's, yeah. And then Wandale, you said, where do you guys have Wandale? He is 24th I've had for Jamie, 28th for Dave.
No, I changed it last night.
Okay. Good luck. He gets a 25% target share most weeks. It's awesome. Just doesn't do a ton with it. And the Lions, over the last 5, how about this? Over the last 5 games, the Detroit Lions have faced the Chiefs, no Rice, the Bucks, the Vikings, the Commanders, no McLaurin, and the Eagles. And no wide receiver has more than 58 yards against them in their last 5 games. They have given up some touchdowns, though. All right. Theo Johnson is 13th for everyone. Let's get to some questions. Oh, Slayton or Hodgins, would you have any interest in them?
Yeah.
I'd have to be desperate at receiver to start them.
Okay, Brock Wright. Yeah, does anybody have any interest in Brock Wright after 7 targets last week? 8 targets?
Desperation play.
I agree. I'd rather start Theo Johnson.
Giants have oddly been good against tight ends. All right, some quick questions that I missed from last game. Christian Watson or Trey Tucker?
Watson.
Yep.
Jordan Addison, Greg Dortch, or Rashid Shaheed?
It's crazy. That's where Addison is falling into, but I'd still go Addison.
I would too. A little reluctance there, but that's it.
Hawkinson or Colson Loveland?
How do you know it's not Theo Johnson?
I think it's from the last game. TJ, Hawkinson or Loveland?
I'd go Loveland, but would look for other options.
Emmanuel Wilson, Ken Walker, or Aaron
You'd start
Jones?
Theo Johnson over both those guys, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I would too.
Emmanuel Wilson, Ken Walker, Aaron Jones?
I think right now I have Wilson ranked the highest, but I may move Jones ahead of him.
I have Wilson ranked the highest. I might move Walker ahead of him.
Ugh, and then this is just a gross pumpkin cheesecake. What else?
Just go pumpkin pie. It's the best.
What else? You going to make me watch a Seminoles game while I eat that? Everything I hate? All right, next game.
Are you guys getting the playoffs? I haven't really paid attention.
Oh, speaking about the playoffs, good news for the Bills. If the Bills and the Texans end up with the same record, the playoff committee said that the Bills are going to get in over the Texans because this would count as a quality loss. If you know, you know. Selection committee is insane. Absolutely insane. Buffoonery.
You guys are getting screwed because of Notre Dame?
No, we're getting screwed because we have terrible coaching against inferior teams.
Yeah, no. Miami, if they don't get in the playoffs, it's their own fault. But
Correct.
if they go 10-2 and Notre Dame goes 10-2 and Notre Dame gets in over Miami because they have better quality losses, one of them to Miami, ridiculous. Carolina's at San Francisco. Stat of the game. The Niners have allowed.
The shoulders were covered because you're wearing the same shirt as your chair, but those were.
Yeah, no, but it's Miami's fault.
What did it look like, Jamie? Show us. Yeah, there it is.
Carolina at San Francisco.
I don't know if I lost it.
Now, the 49ers are 31st in pressure rate and 32nd in sacks. And the 49ers have allowed 23.6 or more fantasy points to a quarterback in 6 of their last 7 games. Would you start Bryce Young over Jordan Love?
No, but you could certainly make the argument for it.
Yeah.
You just did.
I know. DFS, think about Bryce Young, but also he has the potential for...
It's a showdown game because it's Monday night.
All right, look, we talked a lot about Tedero McMillan on Beyond the Box Score. I won't get into it. I think we said some pretty interesting things, so take a listen to it. But coming off this game...
Start him.
Sure, start him. Any concerns about Rico Dowdle? No, you guys have him 6th.
The concern is that Rico is so good that Bryce Young doesn't throw as much as we're thinking, and Tedero McMillan comes up a little small.
Did you see the play breakdown he had last week, Rico?
No.
Oh, it was so awesome. He called the pass where he stepped out of bounds. So he read he was in pass protection the previous play. and he saw the way that the Falcons were playing them, that they were leaving either safety or linebacker on one side of the field completely alone. And he went over to Canales and said, call whatever play again. And instead of me pass blocking, I'll leak out and throw me the ball. And he realized all he has to do is beat one player and it's a touchdown. And he essentially did, but he stepped on the out of bounds line. It was awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Love to see that. He's been very inefficient 2 games in a row. So let's not make it 3 in a row. All right. McMillan, you're starting. Jatavion Sanders, you're not starting. All right. So then here we go.
Oh,
so
you forgot to bring up what happened in our IDP waivers.
Well, you got the guy, right?
For $4.
That's fine. I have no chance in that.
I know.
one.
It was just funny.
Yeah. I don't even remember who it was. The guy who's taking over.
Curtis Robinson.
Curtis Robinson. There's another guy that I picked up in IDP. I'll try to give another name just randomly that I saw he had like a big game last week and nobody added him. Anyway, 49ers. McCaffrey, yes. Kittle, yes. Purdy. Dave, starter sit. Brock Purdy. Carolina is actually 12th best against quarterbacks, but it's, I think, a little deceiving.
The Panthers are very much like the 49ers. They don't get a big pass rush. I think their secondary is probably playing a little bit better than the 49ers, but the way that Brock Purdy came back from injury and just carved up Arizona, I don't think that this is a step up at all as far as defensive matchup goes. And Purdy should be able to have another really good game. It kind of encourages me for the receivers in this game too, for the 49ers, just because I know Pearsall didn't do anything last week, looked like a cardio game. He was getting open. He's got his speed back. I wonder if they lean into him a little bit more. So I kind of view them as borderline number 2, number 3 receivers. Kittle's going to be awesome. McCaffrey's going to catch a bazillion passes. And if that's going to happen, then by default, Brock Purdy's got to be a top 10 quarterback.
Okay. Purdy or the Cowboys-Eagles game?
Purdy
or Baker Mayfield?
Purdy.
By the way, the guy I picked up in IDP is not someone I'm going to recommend. Probably going to drop him. Cody Barton. He's had 2 good games in a row, but it's past defended and sacks. It's not like tackles. Yeah. So no. I don't know that there's. Oh yeah, no. Let's talk. I asked you during one question for each game. How do you feel about the wide receivers? Jamie, you said you prefer Jennings to Pearsall. So who's a wide receiver that we don't really like this week that we've been talking about? AJ Brown. Would
Everybody?
you start Juwan Jennings over AJ Brown?
No.
I'm not there yet.
Would you start Jennings or
A Packers receiver?
Yeah, sure.
So right now I've got both Packers receivers ahead of Jennings, but that's a switch I'm thinking about making is actually putting both 49ers receivers ahead of both the Packers receivers.
I would make a Packers sandwich with Jennings and Pearsall on the outside.
I do like Jennings better than Pearsall.
Some chat questions. Purdy or Daniel Jones?
Purdy.
Brissett or Purdy?
Ooh.
I go back and forth on these guys. I think Purdy right now over Brissett, but they're close.
I think both of them could be in shootouts. Might not be a lot of defense in either game. I'll go Brissett.
I don't. By the way, Purdy or Mahomes?
Mahomes.
I have Purdy over Mahomes.
Mahomes at home has just been absolutely disgusting. He's incredible.
Tedero McMillan or Michael Wilson?
McMillan, but it's close.
Agreed. All the way around.
And Juke says, I still don't believe Adam actually likes Rage Against the Machine. Has to be fronting. I never said I like Rage Against the Machine. I just had them on my Get Pumped Up mix. I don't particularly have any feelings about Rage Against the Machine. And this guy says, pull up my... What the hell? Which one is that? Is that Grover?
You don't know?
Is it Grover?
Yes.
It's super.
Don't you have
Grover
kids?
sitting in my chair with my microphone. All right. That's it for this game. Jamie, I think, has the 49ers DST ranked somewhat high.
No, I moved them down.
Okay, yeah, they suck. Don't start them. Tampa Bay's at the Rams. Here's a defensive injury that I have not mentioned once all week, really, I don't think, and I should have. Rams safety Quentin Lake, who played every snap for them, is on IR. So this will be they have a great young secondary. Quentin Lake will not be playing at least for 4 games. Stat of the game, which leads to the question of the game. Baker Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka have been bad for fantasy in 3 of their last 4 games. And now they're facing the number 2 defense in the NFL. So why should I be optimistic, Dave, about the Bucs this week?
You should be optimistic about them because I still believe that they're a good offense. There's been some weird circumstances with Baker Mayfield over 3 of his last 4 games that have slowed him down and made his numbers not look as great as we were hoping. I keep going back to that Patriots game, though, and that's a good defense, and he had 3 touchdowns in that game. So to me, Baker's someone that is still very startable. I do feel safer with quarterbacks like Brissett, Purdy. I don't know if people are thinking about Mahomes versus Baker, but I'd start Mahomes over Baker. I think he could still have a good game here. You mentioned the Lake injury. I think that's significant. The thing that stood out to me about the Rams over the last 3 weeks, they're not getting nearly as much pressure on the quarterback as they were earlier in the season. And I think they have something like 3 sacks or lower in their last 3 games combined. If you give me a second, I'll look it up. 1 sack in their past 3 games combined.
Whoa.
That's not the Rams defense that we're used to seeing. And if Baker's got time, he will absolutely connect downfield. And it makes it easier to attack the middle of the field if there's no Quentin Lake.
Okay. Yeah. I always like to look at, because the Rams are 6th best against quarterbacks. Have any good quarterbacks actually struggled against them? And the only one I would say is Daniel Jones. And remember, Jones
And
had
he was so close to having a good
Darnold.
game. Right.
I didn't include Darnold in this because he really hasn't been that good for fantasy. But you're right. I mean, Darnold had a terrible game.
Darnold was an MVP candidate.
From a fantasy perspective, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Let's see. What did Darnold do against them? He scored. I don't have that up here, but he was obviously horrible.
He had 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of
Under
them
10
were.
fantasy points.
Yeah, he was absolutely terrible. I don't think Baker could be that bad.
No, and listen, Baker had a bad game last week because our quarterbacks were so bad. He was still a top 10 quarterback last week, but
True.
he has more times than not in this spot, and you can debate who his receivers were at those times. But at Seattle, great game. At Houston, solid game. Against Philadelphia, solid game. Against the Patriots, solid game. You know, I don't know if the Patriots qualify as those other 3
No,
games.
they haven't been that good against quarterbacks.
Okay, so throw that one out. But the other 3 games, he's been 22 or more fantasy points against Seattle, Houston, in their buildings, both of those, and against Philadelphia. So I just think you trust him enough that you don't go to the waiver wire. If you have, for whatever reason, Brissett or Purdy on your team and you want to pivot to those guys, you can. But I just think Baker has just as much upside as almost any quarterback that you should still start him, and that Ibuka hopefully will start to deliver as well.
Yeah, Baker's big problem right now is big plays. His first 6 games, he was 4th in big play rate. His last 4 games, he's 23rd in big play rate. And I think not having Mike Evans is hurting there. But
I think
also
it's a big Otten week.
Big Otten week.
Yeah,
All right,
that makes sense.
So Ibuka and Otten are must starts.
Yes.
And then Tucker is
Flex it best for me.
Really? Just a matchup?
Yeah.
But what if he gets, 15 or more carries? He had 19 last week.
I mean, he certainly could come through. It's a matter of, again, we're still talking about a team. I know they've given up rushing touchdown each of the last 2 weeks. One was to a backup running back in Brian Robinson. One was to Ken Walker in a hurry-up situation. So Tucker can certainly fall into the end zone. They're not as formidable as they have been. And, missing players on defense is never going to help. But I still think you just look at it as Tucker had one great game, and the one great game was against one of the worst defenses in stopping the run.
Yeah.
By the way, that's part of the reason why Baker didn't have a great game last week, was a bunch of drives were ended by Sean Tucker. Baker only threw 28 times. It was under 30.
Yeah, this feels like a throw-it game for sure.
I think it's a throw-it game for both teams.
Yep.
And Rashad White has not been good, but he actually has scored 8 to 10.4 fantasy points in 4 straight games. He hasn't been that bad. He's involved in the passing game.
This feels like a typical Rashad White 5-catch for 15-yard type game.
You cannot start Chris Godwin if he plays, right? I mean, you had his coach saying we're not going to just throw him in there for 50 snaps. Yeah. You can't start Tez Johnson, right?
I would consider Tez Johnson as a number 3 receiver if Godwin is out. I would stay away from Tez Johnson if Godwin plays.
All right, we like Otten. Stafford, we love, top 3. Kyron is top 13, just more than 14 carries now in one of his last 7 games. And start Adams, start Puka. There's been some talk about Puka not playing that much. He hasn't been playing that much. They go with these 3 tight end sets, and Adams is the guy on the field. Whatever. I mean, it's not much you can do about it. That could always
Well,
change.
now they're going to be in 2 tight end sets because Higbee's out.
Probably. Any
No,
interest?
they could still do 3 tight
I'm
ends if
kidding.
they wanted to.
Kidding.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, are we going to gamble on a Rams tight end, Dave?
I wouldn't. I would not.
No, but keep an eye on Ferguson. I mean, this is a guy that they tried to get going a couple times the last few weeks, and he clearly has a ton of upside. But I think you got to see it first, and this is not the week to trust it.
I mean, when's the last time a Rams tight end?
It's the game of the week. Yeah, the Rams and the Bucs. You think I forgot about the game of the week? No, because this is the game of the week. Hey, woo! You hung around long enough. You are in the game of the week. Sit the DSTs.
You picked the right game.
Thank you. I hope so. Atlanta's at the Saints. Let's see. It's out of the game in their last 4 games.
I thought you were waiting for this game.
Falcons. I could see this game being sneaky.
I thought he might have gone with Carolina, San Francisco.
Carolina is so boring. Even when they're not.
I know all those targets to McMillan and
one
games
one
by
game.
Rico.
One game. Yeah, no, Rico slammed the ball up the middle. That's all they do all game. Anyway, the Falcons in their last
It'll
4
work
games,
this week.
the Falcons have allowed 7 wide receivers to score 12.8 or more fantasy points, and 5 of them have scored 18.4 or more in their last 4 games. They have been really bad against wide receivers. So start Olave. All right. Juwan Johnson or Kate Otten?
Otten.
Double checking my rankings. I have Otten higher.
But we like Johnson better than Jake Ferguson and Dallas Goedert. We like
It's not an easy matchup, but just hopefully his consistency and what he's shown us at least in the 2 games with Shuck continues.
We've talked enough about Kamara. If you missed it, Jamie talked about him yesterday at the start of the show. Dave talked about him in one question for each game. He's a number 2 running back. I'm kind of nervous about him because, I remember his game against the Giants. Giants were a great matchup, and Kamara was terrible. But I understand.
Yeah, please stash Devin Neal.
The one thing I'd point out is that Kendry Miller was getting 7 to 11 carries per game. Devin Neal's getting about 4. So that has helped Kamara as well. It doesn't have the same split as he once did.
I'm good with stashing Neal if it's a deeper league, but I think you can find better than that on the waiver wire. We talked about this yesterday, Adam, on the Beat the Waiver Wire show. Chris Rodriguez would be. I'd rather have Rodriguez on the bench.
Schedule is fantastic for the Saints, and if Kamara has to miss any time, Neal could be a league winner.
Kamara or Sean Tucker?
Kamara.
I have Kamara higher.
Okay. All right. Kyle Pitts, we're excited about to a degree. I mean, he's slumping a little bit, but
it's a full PPR thing.
Right. We've had this one setup where it's been no London and Kirk Cousins, and he had a big game. He had 9 targets and 14.9 PPR fantasy points.
He had 9 catches.
Yeah, he caught all.
He had a Pokemon.
There you go. Caught them all. And then there's Mooney. So Mooney or AJ Brown.
No, come on. Zach Robinson did say they're going to continue to give Mooney opportunities. Their offense coordinator for the Falcons. So, this is his chance to prove himself, and we'll see if he can maybe turn things around and have a strong finish. There should be no semblance of confidence because he has no touchdowns this season and has not got double digits in PPR yet this year, and that's including back-to-back games with 7+ targets. So, I think you pick him up, and if you're desperate, there are a lot of crappy wide receiver matchups this week, and 3 receiver leagues, 3 receivers in a flex, you start them. But it shouldn't be like, I'm excited to get Darnell Mooney in my lineup because Drake London's out.
You didn't even mention the biggest strike against him, which is his quarterback, Kirk Cousins under center. Just he's not throwing with the same type of velocity that he did even last year. Very pressure sensitive. I'm super nervous about Cousins and everybody that he's throwing to in the game. The reason to pick up Mooney, and you're certainly not starting him, I agree. He might be a top 40 wide receiver for me. He's got the Jets next week. That's a pretty good matchup. So if he looks good this week, and by he, I mean both Mooney and Cousins, maybe you could consider Mooney next week against the Jets. But it's a deeper league type stash at wide receiver. And remember, next week everybody's playing. No one's on a bye. So you'd have to be really scraping the bottom of the barrel at wide receiver for Mooney to be in consideration as a stash.
And London is expected to be back next week. So maybe not definitively, but it would have to be a lot for Mooney to, have a stretch here where he's helping you. Chat questions. Start Bijan Robinson, by the way. Juwan Johnson or Tyrone Tracy?
Johnson.
I like Juwan Johnson better.
Darnell Mooney, Yoshivas, or Romeo Dobbs?
I'll take
Dobbs.
Yoshua.
I'll take Dobbs.
Kareem Hunt or Tyler Algier?
Spider-Man meme. Both need touchdowns. I'll take Kareem Hunt.
I've got Hunt higher.
This is obviously Hunt if Pacheco's out.
Yes.
No question.
But if Pacheco's in, then it's pretty close. Pitts, Fannin, or AJ Barner in PPR?
Pitts by a good margin for me.
Hold your nose.
And pick one. Did I read this one? No, I didn't. Judy, Moody, or Yoshivas? Sorry, I'm holding my nose.
Yoshi.
I'll take Yoshua.
And good question to end the show with. Does Bijan slowly fade with Kirk Cousins? Not with Christian Kirk. Does Bijan slowly fade with Kirk Cousins?
No.
No, there was only one stat I saw that I didn't like, and that was Kirk Cousins last year. He had about a 15.5% running back target rate. This year, Michael Penix is at 20%. So we'd love to see that go up for Kirk Cousins, that running back target rate. It probably will in this game without London, but it is something to keep in mind. I guess I'd prefer Penix be his quarterback, but he's still Bijan Robinson.
Would you rather be a Giants fan or a Falcons fan right now?
A Giants fan.
Would you rather be a Browns fan or a Falcons fan right now?
Falcons.
Yeah, Falcons fan.
I'll take the Browns. Would you rather be a Jaguars fan or a Falcons fan right now?
Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars might actually make the playoffs this year.
Would you rather be a Dolphins fan or a Falcons fan right now?
Falcons. The Dolphins have a very bleak future, I believe.
The Falcons
And the
traded
Falcons'
away their
future is
first-round pick.
super bright. Right.
Oh, they did trade their first round pick.
Don't
Yeah.
have their quarterback maybe for the start of next season.
I'd rather be a Rams fan. They've got the Falcons pick.
I mean, it seems like they made a pretty good pick with that pick that they traded away, but that was
it seemed like
It's
a
just
lot
the
to
last
give
two
away.
drafts of signing Cousins, then drafting Penix,
Right.
not helping your defense, then panicking and trading up to get a defensive player that is good, but I don't think is worth the capital that they spent.
Who's their starting quarterback week 1 next year? Is it going to be Penix? Do you think he'll be healthy by then?
I think it's Cousins.
I think it's Penix. What they say?
I think it's Penix too,
February?
but I'm curious to see just how they operate this offseason. They might totally rehaul their front office too, based on all these moves and how things have turned out. We'll see. But it is definitely tough to be a Falcons fan these days.
In all seriousness, if you're a fan of a bad team, can't believe I'm saying this, the Giants are a pretty good bad team to be a fan of. Okay.
Yeah, they've got their quarterback situation.
Well, they have a guy that's fun to watch and, opportunity to reshape their franchise.
But not just that. They have elite players on the offensive line and defensive line. And they have Malik Neighbors. They've been so bad, they've actually collected a decent amount of talent, and a lot of it's under contract. All right, let's get some drumsticks this week. Not the chicken kind. And we will talk to you on the mailbag.
Turkey kind.
Noon Eastern.
I have to root against you, though. I'm sorry.
Why?
I have Goff to start of the week, so I hope he goes.
So what? You can still you like Wandale. So we'll chase some points. We'll keep it close. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.